Right. Sup, everybody. Welcome back to the Catch Up After College podcast. We may be post graduation, but we're never post education. I'm Isaiah Brown, your host. Thank you for tuning in today. No, it's been a while. Hope everyone's been well. Hope you've been safe in these unprecedented times. So, of course, we had to get another amazing guest. He's very motivating, and it is Mr. Deven Rodriguez here with us today. How you doing, man?
Hey man, I'm doing well now that I'm with you. That's for sure. I'm excited. I like that you basically said that education doesn't stop even when we're out of school. So that's why I'm here, man. I'm a big believer in that too, and I'm happy to share this virtual stage or whatever one wants to call it with you. So thank you for having me today, and I look forward to having a wonderful discussion.
Awesome. Sounds good. And speaking of education, want to tell us about any of the books behind you?
Huh, where do I even start? I'll tell you, I'll give you a few book recommendations to just start off with. And these are books that I believe if you read these books, they will radically transform your life. Now, I'm really big into personal development. So the books that I'm about to name off are personal development books. And the first one that I would recommend to you in no specific order, but the first one, and I would say this would be the one I would start with, is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is by Stephen Covey. Another book I'll tell you is also by Stephen Covey, and it is called First Things First. Teaches you all about how to prioritize and plan your not only your day, your month, your year, but your life. And I'll also tell you to pick up two other books, The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murray. And then I'll also tell you to pick up a really good book called Inner by a man named John Assaraf. And it talks about exercises for your mind. Because we work out our arms and our legs, but we don't really exercise the inner part of us, which tends to be our brain and our mind. So yeah, those are some good book recommendations, man. You got to go pick them up.
Awesome. Sounds good. Loving it already. And I thought since you're talking about personal development already, we played this game before where I would give a couple excuses and then you have to motivate me out of them. Would you be up for something like that?
Oh, I'm up for it, man. This is great. I love it.
Awesome. Cool. Shout out to Joseph. He was the last guy to do this. He was a personal trainer in season 2. If you want to check that out as well. But here's the first excuse if you're ready. So, hey, Devin, I don't know what to do with my life. I think I'm just going to get a day job like everyone else and only have fun on the weekends.
First thing I would say is you got to stop living for 2/7 of your life. A lot of us act in life as if we're in the driver's seat, the passenger seat of our life. We simply look, and if you've ever been in a car with somebody, you'll notice that sometimes when you're on a really long road trip, you look over at the person in the driver's seat and you're thinking, when the hell are you going to get off of this exit? For one, you told me we were about to get off 2 hours ago. And then for two, the GPS tells you to keep getting off, but you keep on going. When the hell are we getting off? So you continue on the road trip. And then finally, 3 hours later, you get off and you look at the person in the driver's seat and you're thinking, what the hell did you just do to me? And then the person in the driver's seat just says, I don't know, I just did what I wanted to do. Now, notice what happened there. The person in the passenger seat is looking at the person in the driver's seat. And that's exactly how most of us live our lives as passengers in life, simply looking at people that are doing excellent things, people that are actually in the driver's seat of their life. And we look at them and we put some titles on them and we say, how did you get to where you got to? You must be special or you must be extraordinary. But the moment that we become the drivers of our life, and that starts with taking responsibility and understanding that, yes, we might all be where we are right now, but that isn't where I always have to be. I have the ability to create my future and I am the owner. And but when I decide that I own me, then I get in the driver's seat. And I don't care about any of the passengers, which is everybody else in our society, everybody else who wants to conform, who wants to be the same. Mediocrity is the normalcy in our world. And when you start to become the driver of your life, that is when you start to determine the exit that you want to get off. You determine where you want to go. You determine, most importantly, the person that you want to become. Because for me, that's what drives everything. So that's what I would say for that. Don't be a passenger in life. Get behind the wheel and put two hands firmly on that wheel so you can drive to exactly where you want to go in life.
Nice. That's good stuff. That's some free advice right there, people. Take that in for sure. How about Man, I don't want to exercise today. I just want to go home and relax after a hard day at work. I want
Yeah,
to squeeze in that workout.
yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. But I'll also tell you this. There's a good quote by Jim Rohn, and he says, "We all suffer from one of two pains in life, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The only difference being that discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons." So anytime that I don't feel like doing something, I want to first point out that, yeah, sometimes I do lose. Sometimes I don't do the thing. Why? Because I'm human. So anybody that's listening to this and is like, man, this guy is a coach, he's a speaker, that must mean that he's always super motivated and that he gets the job done. No, I'd be lying to you if I told you that some days I skipped a workout, if I told you that some days I didn't do what I had to do. Yeah, right. I'm human. That's part of who we are. But the thing that I want you to keep in mind is that I reference this and I compare this to a war, not because I'm in the military, but think about how a war is won. A war is won when one side wins more battles than the other side. But that doesn't mean that the side that won never lost any battles. It just means that it won more. So when I look at my life and my personal growth and development, I understand that I'm going to have some days that I lose. But as long as I have more days that I'm winning than I am losing, I'm going to make progress. With that being said, if you have the ability to get up 7 days in a row and do the things that you don't want to do, you're going to grow at an exponentially greater rate than if you won, say, 4 days and you lost 3, then you only went one step ahead. But if I went 7 days winning and 0 days losing, now I'm 7 times ahead. So we really have a decision to make. Do I want to continue to live the life I'm living, or do I want to step into a greater purpose of who I am and leave my mark on this world?
Awesome. Good stuff. And I just got one more for you on procrastination. So, hey, man, I got paper due soon, but I think I'm just going to wait until the day before it's due to actually work on it.
There's another good quote out there. I'm not sure who said this one, but they said that the first best time to plant the tree was yesterday, and the second best time is now. And this is a story that I'm going to share with you that is deeply personal to me, and that it enabled me to understand the urgency of time and to act on time and act on now. Back in 2016, 2016, I suddenly lost my grandmother. Now, you see, my biological father was a man that abandoned my mother and I when I was around 3 years old. In fact, I remember the last time I saw him, he handed me a pair of jeans through the car window. He walked away and then he turned around and looked at me with a weird look. And as a 3-year-old, all you just remember seeing the face of him looking around. Little did I know that he was looking at me because that was the last time he'd ever see me. So my grandmother raised me. My dad made me, but she raised me. So all of my life I was with her. In 2016, I went by her house. We had dinner, and she asked me this question. She said, "Devin, why don't you sleep over our house? It's been so long since you slept over." Now, she's an Italian woman, straight from Italy. So, "Devin, why don't you sleep over the house? So come on, I cook you breakfast. I give you anything you want. Sleep over, please. I miss you, Devin." So I told the grandma, "Listen, I would really love to, but unfortunately, it takes me a little bit longer to get to my internship from here than it would from my house. So I'll sleep over next weekend." So she gave me the invitation, but I neglected and I rejected it. Fast forward later that week, the next time I saw my grandmother, she was on life support in a hospital as she had a massive heart attack just a couple of days after that. I had to watch as she was in that room, and we pulled her off life support, and I knelt down next to her and gave her a kiss on the forehead for the very last time. And a lot of the thoughts that I had was, how silly was I to think that next weekend would come? My grandmother gave me the invitation, and I rejected it, and then she died. Now, I don't want you to think that her death wasn't necessarily the worst thing ever, because she taught me with her death. She gave me the greatest gift, knowing that my time here will come to an end. But another thing I learned about my grandmother was that the life that she lived will live on forever because of who she was. And in a similar way, when we procrastinate and we put off our dreams and our goals until tomorrow, two things might happen. Number one, you may die. And number two, if you don't accept the invitations, because life is always inviting us to a greater us. We all feel that tug that's telling us you got more in you. You know you do. But it's that other voice that's saying stay where you are because that's comfortable. And as we continue to reject the invitations of life, our dreams begin to die. Benjamin Franklin once said that most people die at 25 but aren't buried until they're 75. Why? Because their dreams died when they were so young. And so all that I would say is the life you live now is nothing compared to the life you will live when you're no longer here, meaning that my goal in life is to live a life that will outlive me, meaning the only way I can do that is to build such a powerful legacy while I'm here on earth. But I can only do that once I start to act with a sense of urgency. So funny enough, my podcast, the One Life podcast, which we'll talk about a little bit, the way I end it is that there's no time to wait. We only have one life to live. There's no time to wait. Act now.
Nice. Cool. Thank you for sharing that for sure. And I know you just told us a little bit about your life before college, but you mind telling us a bit more of where you're from and what that really looked like for you?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I grew up in New York City, Queens, New York. It was funny though, because for the first 5 years of my life, I grew up in a pretty diverse area. And that quickly turned around when I moved with my parents. My biological father left me, but God was gracious enough to give me a bonus father, my stepdad, Louis. So once him and my mom got married, we moved into another part of Queens. And what I thought was going to be a good experience quickly turned into 6 years of hell. Because of the color of my skin, people hated me to the point where I couldn't even leave my house because I would be beat up. Hated me to the point where I would go to my guidance counselor every day, and she happened to be a woman of color. And she was the only person that understood the pain that I was going through. They hated me so badly that I would sit in the middle of the line and they would spit on me. I was the reject, the person that nobody wanted to be around. The only time they wanted to be around me was if they wanted some good Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon cards, because I was that guy. So if you wanted some, what was Exodus? Yeah, that was the Yu-Gi-Oh card back then. Let me get some Exodus, and I'll get you some good Pokemon cards too. But besides that, nobody wanted to know me. And for 6 years of my life, it was a complete torture and a complete hell. And I'll just share two quick points with everybody. And there was a turning point that came in the 5th grade when my parents asked me this question: Devin, why don't you just let us transfer you to another school? You're going through all of this pain. You're going through everything. We'll put you in a more diverse school. So let us do that for you. Please, honey. And I turned to my parents and I said something that still strikes me sometimes, but I now know why I said it. I said no. And as I reflect back on that time, I know that I said no because I was not going to allow anyone else to determine my future for me except for me. If I would have left that school and I would have went to a different one, it wouldn't have been because I wanted to go to another school and that was my greatest desire to go to this other school. No, it would have been because I allowed them and their hatred to influence me to go to another school. They would have been the drivers of my life while I would have just been standing or sitting in the passenger seat, looking at them, allowing them to go wherever they wanted. The second thing I wanted to share with you came in the 8th grade when I was nominated as the school president by the same kids that bullied me for 6 years of my life. I knew at that point the power of perseverance. There's a man named Walter Elliott. One of his most famous quotes is that perseverance is not a long race. It is many short races, one after the other. So meaning that every day for me was another battle, which I had to not only survive, but conquer. So by the time I was in 8th grade, the enemy, my bullies, had no option but to quit because I wasn't going to. And ultimately, I win. So my message is outlast your struggle, because there's going to come a point where the struggle, the devil's looking at you and saying, why? Why won't you break? I've been trying forever and you won't break. So I guess I'll have to. Outlast. So from there, I went on to high school in Queens as well, and I had a lot of good experiences there. I had a couple of stories I could share, but for brevity's sake, I'll just wrap it up with that being said. So I went to that middle school. I stayed in Queens, and then I went to high school, stayed in Queens, and then I went to college in Queens.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you again for sharing that. And I forgot that this month is actually Mental Awareness Month. So how did you know when you needed help? Like, I'm going to seek out help for these issues I'm dealing with.
I recall a time as I'm writing my book right now where I would come home almost on a daily basis. And the only thing that would give me solace was going in my room, putting my head into my pillow, and first screaming out of just sheer rage because of what was going on in my life. I know we've all felt that when you're just sitting there and you're thinking, why me? What, God, why are you putting me through this situation? I don't deserve this. After I would get done screaming, I would inevitably start crying, start feeling bad for myself. And then after that, I would get up and I would put on headphones just like you, but they were wired red Beats headphones. And I would start playing Biggie Smalls. Who shot you? Separate the weak from the obsolete, hard to creep in Brooklyn streets. That song was it was so filled with hatred that was the only way that I would put it on, and it would be like I was in a concert screaming it around my house, envisioning my enemy, that I was going to just do such bad things. Of course, I didn't actually do those bad things, but that was my way of expressing my rage. And my parents saw this, and unbeknownst to me, they called my guidance counselor, Mrs. Edwards. And I got pulled into her office one day. She basically told me what the hell's going on. I tried denying it, and she said, hey, listen, I know something's going on. Allow me to help you. So then shortly over the course of time, her and I really developed a fabulous relationship. And she was the one in school that really helped me. And then at home, I had beautiful parents who were so supportive. But as we enter mental awareness month, the first part that I want to mention is the awareness part of it. Be aware that you have an issue, that you're going through something. Just because you have an issue doesn't mean that you're an issue. It just means that you're battling something that you might need help with. So get that help, because on the other side of the help are two things: the person that you want to become and the help that you want to provide to other people to help them get through their battles and get through their nightmares. Because after every nightmare, guess what? You wake up and there's another day. So enable people through your actions, inspire them to wake up from their nightmares and start to live a better life. So for me, that's what I would say, man. I love mental health and mental health awareness, man. So thank you for asking that question. That was a deeply personal question there.
Definitely. And going through those hard seasons, what was the dream or the hope that kept you going and just kept inspiring you to just keep waking up every day and doing your best?
Not much at all. It was just, can I survive today? To be honest with you, can I survive today? Because when you're a young kid, when you're 10, 11, you don't have a concept, because school doesn't teach you about life purpose and developing your gift and trying to discover who it is that you want to become. I didn't learn any of that until I was 16, 15 years old. But when you're a kid and you're going through this bullying, all you could think of is, how can I get through today? So that was my mentality, but I also knew that I would never quit. Because for me, I didn't put it on the table. It wasn't an option. I didn't even think about quitting. It just became part of my life that, yes, tomorrow is going to be hard, probably harder than it was today, but it's going to end. And one day things will get better. So yeah, man. And eventually things did get better. But if I would have quit, I don't know what would have happened. It was Thomas Edison who once said that most people are failures in life because they don't realize how close they were to success when they gave up. And similarly, if I would have said yes to my parents when they asked me to transfer to another school, I would have never known that if I would have just stuck it out for another 3 years, I would have been nominated the school president and did something that nobody ever thought was possible. Luckily, though, God blessed me with the ability to stick it through. So I want to share a message with anybody who's going through bullying, racism, anything of the sort. Don't give up. It hurts. I know it hurts because I've been where you are. Maybe not exactly where you are, but I know the feeling. But if you are willing to endure the pain of knowing that I'm going to struggle tomorrow and I'm going to struggle today because I struggled yesterday, one day you are going to say thank you. Thank you for everything that I went through. Because of all of that, I am walking and stepping into my greatness. But if you quit, you will never know what was on the other side of what you were going through. So keep going, because I promise you, the person that God created you to become is on the other side of whatever it is that you're going through.
Awesome. And coming out of that crazy season and going into the Army, you mind telling us about that transition?
Well, yeah. So I eventually went on to high school and college first,
Yeah.
but now I'm in the Army. So for me, it was a choice of what did I want to do with my life. So when I thought about things in that sense, it was, I knew that I wanted to serve people. I knew that I wanted to do something great with my life, not just do something that was for me. Like I said earlier, I'm a person that's driven by my desire to leave a legacy when I'm no longer here. How people will recognize me and remember me. So when I decided to join the Army, I understood that I was going to have the ability to coach, develop, and mentor people. And at a young age, I would be able to do that. So for me, it was, how do I fulfill my dream in life? How do I do this thing where I can allow the life I live to not only live with me and in me, but for other people?
And going on to what you're doing nowadays, what made you want to start your own podcast?
So I decided to start my podcast back in 2018 for the very reason that I explained about earlier, which was the story about my grandmother. When she died, that really taught me the meaning of life, that the life we live is very short, very finite, but it's about what we do in those times that actually matter the most. So with that being said, I thought about creating a podcast, and the name just came to me, the One Life Podcast. And the goal of the show is to enable others to develop the internal tools required to take full advantage of the one life you have to live. Because a lot of the times we play this game called life like we have a replay, like we have a second chance. But meanwhile, we only have one crack at this thing. And if we don't take it seriously, it's going to fly by, and we're going to sit back one day and say, what happened? What could have been? What should have been? And what if I did? And to me, that's scary. I'm on a damn journey, and I am relentless in wanting to sit back one day and say, I did everything that I could. You know, there's a great quote out there that says, someone once told me the definition of hell. It's when you die and you meet the person that you were supposed to become. That's deep. I don't want to meet that person. I want to go to heaven and see a reflection of who I see now.
Nice. That's awesome. And what made you want to be a life coach?
The desire to help people. The desire not to help, because that is a very poor choice of words to use. You see, when we think about coaching, the thing I want people to understand is that coaching is a relationship in which you guys equal into a partnership. You agree to a partnership. That being said, there's nobody that's higher. So if I say I'm helping somebody, that puts it on a playing field where, okay, I'm up here and then the client is down here. because I'm helping them. All I do is that I support people. So we're on an equal playing field. So when I think about coaching, it was kind of double suited. I love helping people, but also I like to make money. So why not monetize what I'm really passionate about? And that's what another thing that I really want people to recognize is that it's okay to make money, number one, because you have a gift. Have you ever seen a tree? Let's say a mango tree, right? We love mangoes. When we go to the tree, we don't go for the bark. We go for the mangoes, the fruits. So when people come to us, they're not coming to us for our weaknesses or whatever the case. They're coming to us for our gifts, and people will pay for your gifts. So if you have a gift, first off, you better start asking a few questions about who you are. A couple of really important questions that I really, really, really want people to ask themselves are these few questions. Number one, who are you? Who are you? A lot of times people will respond with a job title or a name, but who are you in your core identity? Number two, who do you want to become? Number three, who do you want to be remembered as? Is that 3 or 4? I think that was 3. Okay. And then also, what are the principles that you live by? The things that no matter what decision is put in front of you, you know that I can rely on these core set of principles to get through it, and to get through it in accordance with who you are. So with that being said, that's just super important to me, because life coaching is about enabling other people to see the greatness within them. And that's the similarity between like speaking, which I love, and coaching, which I love, is that I can enable people to go somewhere in themselves that they won't typically go by themselves.
Dang, that's a great way to look at it. Never saw it that way before. But I've been wanting to ask you this question. How do physical, mental, and spiritual health intersect and affect each other?
They are the trifecta. So you said physical, spiritual, and what was the other one?
Mental.
Physical, spiritual, and mental. I'll give you an example of this. So I run ultra marathons. I've run up to 105 miles at one time before. About a month ago, I ran a race called Last Man Standing Run, meaning that there were 60 people that were there, and you have to run 1 mile in 15 minutes until there's one person remaining. What does that require? Number one, it requires you to be physically fit, because if you're not physically strong, your body just won't be capable of going the distance. Number two, it requires you to be strong mentally, because the thing with ultra marathons is that you go through peaks and valleys. You'll cry, and then you'll be the happiest person on the planet. And then you go out for 1 more mile, and then you'll cry again. And then your stomach will hurt, and you'll have to throw up. And then you'll have to go pee in the woods and cry again. Or there's just so many ebbs and flows of life that you experience throughout an ultra marathon. So you have to have the mental capacity to not give in to the pain, because if you do, it will consume you. And then lastly, I'm a deeply spiritual person, and I know that my faith is strengthened in those moments when I'm tested most. So I ended up winning this race the other week. It was about 3.5 weeks ago now, but I want to tell a quick story. So I was at mile 60, and there was 3 runners left. Now I was running about 12 and a half minutes per lap. So every mile I was running in 12 and a half minutes deliberately, because that was the plan that I put in place. Now there was this other guy who was running 9-minute miles for 60 miles, 65 miles. And I was looking at this guy thinking he's going to crash. But he didn't start to crash. He actually started to get stronger. And I just started to think to myself, I said, God, I don't know if I could do this anymore. My girlfriend asked me, she said, you think you're going to make it to 100 miles? I didn't even answer her because I didn't think it was possible. I was out there on the next lap, and I remember going up this hill. And imagine anybody listening to this, your life, I think our lives are filled with hills. So imagine one of the hills that you're battling right now. The hill that you can't run up, that you have to slowly walk up because it's so steep. So I was going up one of these hills with my hands on my knees, looking down at the ground saying, can I go anymore? Should I go anymore? Because the person who's in front of me, who's seemingly destroying me, just won't stop he won't let up. He won't let up. But I told myself two things in that moment that enabled me to get through it. Number one, if I give up now, I'll never know how close I was to actually winning. Number two, anything can happen, especially in the sport of ultra running, where you can get a massive blister on your feet and then you're done, where you cannot eat properly between 2 miles and then your stomach just is destroyed and you have no energy and you're done. You can twist your ankle and you're done. So these two things, through God, enabled me to stay in that race. 5 miles later, after this guy looking so strong, he quit out of nowhere. Like, he didn't show any signs of quitting, nothing, but he quit. And that made me realize right there that I had faith. Faith. There's a big difference between belief and faith. Faith is believing without seeing, right? It's walk by faith, not by sight. So for me, God enabled me to do that, because if I only would have relied on myself to get through that time, I would have given in to the physical pain. I had about 12 blisters on my feet. There's no way I could do that if I rely on me. So I had to rely on something greater than me in order to get me through that situation. And that greater than me is God. So all of those three intersected. I was physically fit. I was mentally tough, and I promised myself, I made 4 rules. Number 1, never quit. Number 2, never lose focus. Number 3, never complain, always reframe. And number 4, never lose sight of why I was out there. So with those 4 things, that prepared me mentally. And plus, the other thing to mental preparation is being willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations when you have every reason to be comfortable. So what does that look like? For me, it looks like waking up at 3 a.m. and deliberately going out when it's raining and it's thunderstorming. Why? Because I know life doesn't just give me the circumstances that I want. It gives me the circumstances that it gives me. But the only way to get through those times and to be mentally tough is to practice going through tough times. And then spirituality just drives it all. Spirituality is like the lubricant. It enables me to do everything fluidly because I know where I come from, which is Jesus Christ. So with that being said, all 3 are currently in flow, always in flow with one another. And it's just part of my identity. I can't do one without the other.
That's great. And I know we didn't get to talk about your college experience much yet, but you mind telling us about that and what you studied and what degree you got?
Yeah, sure. So I got rejected from 10 out of 12 colleges that I applied to. I didn't do that well on my SATs. I did above average, but I applied to very high caliber institutes and I got rejected from all of them. The only 2 options I had were St. John's University in New York City and Hofstra University in Long Island, New York. Basically, everybody gets into those schools. They were my quote unquote safe schools. I went to St. John's because they gave me a full scholarship and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. Those next 4 years of my life, I committed myself to excellence. One thing I didn't tell you about that moment with my grandmother was that right before she passed, I knelt down and I grabbed her hand as they took her off of life support. And it was clear that she was going to die at any second. And I bent down. I said, Grandma, listen, I promise that I will never, ever, ever, never, ever, 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 never, ever give up. And I also said this, I will always make you proud. So when I went to college, I had committed to excellence. Why? Because I was committed to something greater than myself. I once had somebody tell me, Deven, I have a really hard time staying committed to myself. And I responded to the text saying, you have a hard time staying committed to yourself because you're not committed to something higher than yourself. So when I was committed to something higher than myself, my grandmother, who's not even here no more, I had no option but to be excellent. because it just became who I was. I took 6 semesters of 21 credit hours. That's 7 classes on top of being in ROTC, student government, and all these different clubs, founding my own organization. 4.0 GPA throughout my entirety of college. How does somebody do that coming from where I came from, being bullied, having no natural smarts, barely getting 70s in high school? How? I committed to excellence, and I defined what that was for me. For me, 4.0 was the threshold. If I got below that, I knew that I didn't do everything that I could. And the thing with people in college is that they're so quick to blame their professor. They're so quick to blame their mother, their father, their tutor. It's your fault. I promise you, it is your fault. I'll recall a class with a professor named Professor Gerber. We started off the first day with 45 people in the class. On the last day, there were 6 people remaining in the class. Why? Because everybody else dropped out. When you drop out, you tell the world who you are. I am a person who drops out, and you will drop out of much more than just a class in your life. Stay the course, because the person you become throughout the process is more important than the position that you get or the grade that you get in the process. I got an A in that class. Everybody else thought he was a nightmare. He taught me more about myself than I learned in any other class because it was the most challenging. People want to skate by and take the easy road. The easy road doesn't lead to you going somewhere good. The easy road leads to you being who you always been. And who you always been won't get you to where you want to get to in the future. So, with that being said, I committed myself to excellence. I defined what excellence was. Also, service was very important to me. I led a trip of 13 students. We went to Skid Row in downtown Los Angeles. I went to Houston, Texas, and I rebuilt houses there with another group. I went to Kensington, Philadelphia, worked with homeless population there. And I just love community service and seeing the impact that just a simple conversation could have on somebody's life. I went through college. I was in ROTC. I founded my own organization, the Society of Growth and Success, which was dedicated to enabling other young people to discover who they are, because we're not asked those types of questions in college or in high school or in elementary school or in middle school. So I did that. And then I went on to, actually, it was funny. I remember getting a call in ROTC one day and I didn't pick it up. I left the room and I called back the number and the person goes, "Hi, this is Dean so-and-so. I just wanted you to know that I nominated you as one of the top 100 business schools, and I was one of the top 100 business students in America." Excuse me? What did you just say? Well, you see, Devin, our school, St. John's University, was ranked within the top 50 business schools in America for the first time this year. And as a result of that, we get to choose 2 students out of the thousands we have in our school to nominate as the top 100 business student in America. So wait, Dean, you're telling me that you're choosing me? Yes. The thing I'm trying to say is that, yes, I was chosen a top 100 business student in America, in Forbes, Yahoo Finance, all of these big magazines, coming from being rejected from 10 out of 12 colleges, being told I would never be as smart as my peers. Where are you at now, homie? So the past doesn't determine the future. You know, people oftentimes treat it like 1 + 1 = 2. So my past plus my beliefs equal my future. No. 1 + 1 in that case could equal 10 million, because you get to create the reality that you want. And that's exactly what I did. And I don't tell anybody any of this to impress you. I tell you this to impress upon you that you have the ability, once you get a picture in your mind of where it is that you want to go, to create anything that you want. But it all starts with you, not anybody else, but you. So I'll just end on this. So I graduated college back in May of 2020. And I since have departed, and now I'm in the United States military. So having a good old time, man. And college was the best time of my life. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm so happy I got rejected from all those Ivy League schools, because I was able to go somewhere that I was able to discover me. I don't care what your major is. because our majors, a lot of times we choose them because of the prosperity that they promise. But we don't choose our majors based upon the person that we will become as a result of that major or that career. So a little advice that I would give you as you look for your job search and what you want to do after college, focus on your gifts. You look at anything in this world, everything has a gift, a seed. What is the gift of a seed? The tree. What is the gift of the tree? The fruits. But a tree also has leaves. What is the gift of a leaf? Oxygen. Without oxygen, we would all die. Everything has a gift. And similarly, you have a gift, but you got to search for it and stop hanging out with people who are telling you to go out on Friday, Saturdays and go out and get wasted every day, because guess what? You're going to look back on life one day and say, I wonder if I would have done it differently. What would have happened? Because you can always go out and party when you're 50, 60, 70, but you can never go back to May 2021 and relive sophomore year, relive junior year, relive senior year. You only got one chance at this thing, so make it count.
Awesome. And thinking on the Army, thinking on college, what's the most practical way you put to use everything that you studied and learned so far?
I had a professor one day who I actually got a reply to him on LinkedIn now that I think of it. He was my favorite professor. I had two primarily. I had tons of great professors, but these two said things that really stuck out to me, and I'll share them. First one was a man named Jerry Cusack. Jerry's probably 80 years old, but by far one of the best professors and men that I've ever met. And he did this exercise with us once. We all sat down in class, and Jerry was the kind of guy he would just laugh at himself for no reason. So you would look at Jerry like he crazy, like he's a little too old to be in this classroom right now. But he always had a purpose behind what he was doing. So he told us after he got done laughing, he said, okay, I want to do this exercise. So he stands up. He's about 6'3", large man. He goes, everybody stand up, sit down. Everybody stand up, sit down. All right. After a few times, it's funny, right? Stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. And everybody at this point is like, okay, what is wrong with this guy? So he says, all right, stay seated. We were all pissed. Like, this dude just made me get up and down about 20 times. He said, I want you to take this point with you going forward in your lives. When you treat people like machines, they won't act like people. But when you treat people like people, they'll act like machines. So he then went on to, throughout the rest of the class, he would occasionally tell us, okay, stand up, sit down. 10 minutes later, stand up, sit down. That was a lot different from stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, sit down. He started treating us like a human. It was a little different. And the point that I'd learned was that if you show people that they're valued and you treat people like people, they'll act like machines. They'll work for you. They'll do whatever it is that you want. Why? Because you treat them like people. The thing that a lot of us come into the realization of is that the people who we work for or with, they don't treat us like people. They treat us as if we're an end product. They treat us as if we're an ends to a means. No, we are the means. We're people. People are the way. The second thing is, I had another professor named Niall Hegarty, phenomenal man. He went on the board and he wrote down the quote. He said, the thing I want you to remember, everybody, is that you have to give your people a voice, but not a vote. He says, you want to show people that what they have to say is valued, that you as the leader value them, but you also as the leader make the final decision. They don't care if you take their decision and that's the one that you also come up with as the one that you're going to go with. They just care that you listen to them. So those are two things that I really take away from college, and specifically that I learned in business school. And it's more so about the little things that I learned than actual class material.
Yeah, great stuff again. I got to ask, I only got two more questions. So what's the vision for the future? Like, whether it's 5 years from now, 20 years from now? What do you see yourself doing?
I'm glad you asked that. And what I want everybody to understand is that what I'm about to say is what is going to happen. Why am I so confident? Because I understand that I control what's going to be the end product. Yes, things are going to happen that I can't anticipate. Yes, life is going to happen and twist me all around and throw things at me that I can't see. But I know if I want something, I'll get it. So with that being said, I'm going to be the top motivational speaker in the world. I'm going to be an international best-selling author. I'm going to publish over 10 books, easily over 10 books. And I'm also going to be one of the top coaches in the world who not only work with people, but also work in a group setting and are able to coach corporate clients and put on different, I want to really run masterminds. I don't know if you ever heard of mastermind, but I'm going to be starting masterminds, and I'm going to be just really developing all different programs which are able to serve people. But primarily, I'm going to be the top motivational speaker in the world. I am going to be one of the top authors in that field on personal development and personal growth. And I'm also going to be one of the top coaches in the world, in which I'm able to not only work with people one-on-one, but I'm able to work with corporate clients and big groups. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I have a serious passion to get into working with the youth as well, because that is where it all starts. When we're young, we're so susceptible to being influenced. But if there's someone in people's lives from a young age that can be that positive influence, specifically in the marginalized communities, that can make such a powerful impact. So thank you for asking that. And please check back in with me in 10 years from now when all of that has come true.
Yeah, man, we'll have to catch up some way for sure. But I love the faith, but you're also willing to put in the works. And as I'm sure you know, faith without works is dead.
Dead.
So, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I just wanted to end on this question. So if there's one thing you could ask your future self, what would it be? And if there's one thing you could tell your high school self, what would it be?
That's a good one. I'll start off with what I would tell my younger high school self. Focus on your gift. Go on a pursuit of internal discovery. I began listening to motivational tapes and audios and YouTube videos when I was about 15 years old, and that's when my personal development journey started. It started when my father sat me down at a table one day and he said, "Devin, get out here." Now, this is the middle of the summer when there's no school going on, so I didn't know why he had that tone in his voice. Sat me down at the table and he looks at me with a stern eye and he says, "Devin, let me ask you a question. What makes you different than anybody who's ever achieved anything great in life?" I don't know, Dad. I don't know. They're just different than me. He said, "No. They put on their pants one leg at a time, just like you do. They put on their shirts one arm at a time, just like you do. So what makes you different? The only difference is that they act differently." I was 16 years old. I quickly got up from that seat, went to the room, and forgot everything he said because I thought it was a crock of BS. Right? When you're 16, you hear somebody saying this, you're like, okay, save that for somebody that actually wants to hear your BS. But what he did is he planted a seed of greatness that stayed with me. But seeds only grow once they are fed, once they have fertilizer. Basically, one seed will only grow if it's placed in rich soil. The soil of our lives is the thing that I would tell my high school self to focus on. The soil is the foundation of who you are. There in the soil, you will find your gifts. There in the soil, you will find who you are. There in the gifts, you will find the image that you have of who you are. Basically, who you think you are or how you think about yourself. Most people in high school walk around with self-defeating thoughts of I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough. The soil's not rich, and seeds of greatness won't grow that way. But if you have the ability to develop soil which is rich at a young age, you could plant any seed and it will grow. Focus on the foundations of life. Don't focus on what job you want to have, what career you want to have, because all of that just comes to you once you discover what you were put here to do, what your gifts are. So for me, I believe my voice is my gift. I believe that God put me here to use this voice to share my experiences and shape the world and to enable the world to be a different place because of this voice. But I didn't think about that in high school because I wasn't taught it. Start thinking about your gift because school won't teach you. And if you rely on formal education, you'll never find your gift. Jim Rohn also once said that formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. People will pay you for your gift, but first you got to find it. The thing that, or what I would say, the question to my older self, was it question? Remind me once again.
Question, yeah.
So question is, how will the world be transformed by my voice? What will be the impact that I will have? Because I have an idea of the impact I will have, but I wonder if there's going to be like a tangible difference because of me, where I could look at society and say, yup, it's different because of me. Because I know that there's going to be people that I touch one-on-one, but my goal isn't to just touch individual people. I definitely do want to do that because I think it starts with the individual. I want to be a culture shifter. I want to be someone that enables people to look around at culture and see that we don't have to be like everybody else. We can forge our own path. So that's really what I would say is what is the impact? Because I know what it's going to be, but what does it look like? But I think that's the beauty. The beauty of not knowing is that you're in a constant pursuit of that. Because I think if I knew, there would be no excitement. There would be no excitement because I would already know what the end product is. But not having the end product makes me work towards hopefully one day seeing what that will be. But I know I will never see it. Why? Because remember what I said at the beginning. The goal of my life is to live a life that will outlive me, meaning that my greatest contributions to this world will probably be when I'm not even here anymore, because my legacy will continue to live on.
That's great, man. Believing the best for your future for sure. And got to encourage you before we take off, man. Like, thanks for reaching out. That's how we met each other. And you're a good man, bro. You have a strong mentality and just keep stepping out in faith to reach and just inspire others. And yeah, like you said before, you're going to see the fruit of all the seeds that you sow. And your story is powerful. It's going to challenge people and it's going to encourage them as well. So just continue to share it for sure.
Amen, Isaiah. Thank you for having me. I had a really, really good time. And I hope that the audience took one or two things away. Because, you know, what I like to share with people is, hey, this is my perspective. I'm not asking you to believe what I say. All I'm saying is that be open to new perspectives, because it's possible that somebody else's perspective may very well be something that can change your life. So with that being said, Isaiah, thank you for having me. You are a true gentleman with an awesome podcast, and I wish you nothing but the best, my friend.
Thanks, man. And same. You got anything you want to promote before we head off?
Sure. So you guys can check out the One Life podcast. So it's just the One Life podcast. And you could also check out my social media, primarily Instagram and TikTok, which are both I am Deven Rodriguez. I am Deven Rodriguez. So with that being said, I'm also on the pursuit of writing my book. So that will be published within the next few months. So be on the lookout for Deven Rodriguez's first book, in which I'm diving into my story of those tough years, but then how that eventually turned into the most beautiful stuff I could have ever imagined. So Isaiah, thank you so much, man. You are a very, very good host, and your listeners are lucky to have you, my friend.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And yeah, for everyone else, take care. Great catching up. Hope you have a good one. And as we're maturing, we're going to keep learning, stirring up, and chasing after what our Creator created us to do. So have a good one, everyone. Peace.